everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. This is the second talk of the day. And we have a tremendous panel, so it's going to be nice. So we're going to talk about the impact of Gen AI on the workforce. And we have Corinne de Bilbao, who is the president of Microsoft France, Gabriel, who is the co-founder of Dust AI, and Jerome, who is the CHRO of Carrefour Group. And together we're nice. We're going to moderate this panel. So there's been a lot of talk about the Gen AI buzzword. I guess we're going to talk about it for the next 3 days. But maybe, and a lot of, I would say, papers and Nostradamus papers saying it's going to change everything in the next months or decades. So I'm going to start with this question. Is it a myth or a reality, this impact on the workforce, on the economy? Maybe starting with you, Jérôme?
Yes, good morning to all of you. AI is already a reality in our business. Maybe Gen AI is less a reality because it's quite new, but AI is a reality. Because the main characteristic of retail industry is we are a massive producer of data. For example, we have 10 billion transactions stored in our database. We talk with 11 million households and 1.3 million people connect every day on our website. So we are producing a lot of data. This data is also interesting for our suppliers, for industrial, and so it's already a part of our business in terms of pricing optimization, in terms of assortment building, in terms of choice of promotion in intensity. And just to give you two examples that are still reality. The first one is the one we just talked. It's called Opla. It's a chatbot on the site. And this chatbot is helping you to prepare your dinner or to prepare your lunch, and is explaining you everything, what you have to buy, depending on what you have in your fridge, how to cook, and taking into account all your personal constraints. And we have another use. It's linked to not for sale purchase. Gen AI is helping us to analyze the answers to the request for proposal. So it's summarizing, analyzing, and so we will come back on it. But it's a very important matter of productivity.
Corinne, what's your thought about it? Is it
Well, thanks for the invitation. I think, it's an unprecedented wave of technology, and generative AI is unfolding at a speed we never seen before. We have another data point. We publish a work trend index as Microsoft every year. This is looking at 31,000 employees, 31 countries. And what does that say this year is that employees want Gen AI. And companies are trying to figure out the path forward, how to deal with it. So I don't know if you remember how we started, with the devices. It was bring your own device at work. Now you have employees that bring their own AI at work. So companies better figure out very quickly how to deal with it. And what we observe is that in the last 6 months, because we publish this survey every year, the number of what we call knowledge workers, the employee in the bureau in France, has doubled in terms of use of Gen AI. And 75% of them are already using AI. Whether it's your AI of the company or their own AI is a different matter. So that's something, which is growing very quickly. And if you look at France specific, it's 56%. So we're a little bit behind, but we're catching up. So I would say that last year I would have told you that there was, a lot of experimentation, a lot of fears, a lot of concerns. There's still concern. But we entered in what we call the age, the year 2 of Gen AI, the age of reason, where people now say, well, and this is a little bit every time when you have a technology revolution, how do you come from experimentation to full deployment? So now everybody's looking at how do you build business case that you're going to deploy at scale. And we see that every industry, I mean, you talk about Carrefour, I mean, how do you improve the customer experience? But every industry, I mean, is impacted and is actually, I mean, developing use case. I have a ton of examples. I mean, you will see on our stand, but you will see on other booths as well. Like Groupama, for example, how you deal with your insurance and help, I mean, the advisor to figure out very quickly, I mean, what are the details, how to deal with, you know, all the knowledge management. Total has been one of the large customer deploying, you know, to all their, not all of their employees, but a big chunk of their employees, virtual assistants to help them with the work. So that's, I would say that's going very quickly now.
Okay, thank you. And Gabrielle, from the other side of the room, maybe from a different point of view, what's your starting point of this?
Yeah, I think, so first of all, thank you very much for having me. Dust.tt, they want us to buy the .ai, but I have not caved into the broker's request yet. So we allow smart and fast-moving teams to deploy solutions and AI-powered assistance internally. But I think I completely agree with the observation that it's a tool that is very general purpose, and historically, general purpose tools have led to quite a lot of disruption. Now, whether you compare it to the printing press or the Industrial Revolution or electricity, I think there's pros and cons to all of these comparisons, but it seems like it can change to a certain degree pretty much every aspect of work. And if you look at the two very different sides of how work may be impacted that we observe at Dust, it's one, how is your product going to change? How should you rethink the experience your users and your customers are going to have now that they can get very natural language interfaces to explore your product, understand your offering, and maybe help themselves and be much more autonomous and empowered in their purchase or use experience. The second scenario is how companies work and how they think about flows of information internally. I think the way we look at the technology, so my co-founder was a research engineer at OpenAI for 4 years, and one of the most powerful insights that convinced me to join him last year was that it really is a universal layer to structure unstructured data. And by structuring unstructured data on the fly, you're able to generate structured data flows from any of the existing flows in your company. What that has as an immediate consequence is the ability to translate between silos of information, whether those silos are in data centers or in teams. And we're especially excited by the use cases that are emerging between teams that spoke the same language but not the same business language, and are now starting to understand each other and able to pull information in very new ways. So I think for existing companies, the hard questions are, what moat did we have until last year that no longer exists, and how should we think about reinventing ourselves internally? And for new companies, it's what paths to growth should we think about very, very differently, whether it's on hiring or on product interfaces.
Yeah, and we are fully aligned with what you shared already with us. And at PwC, we think that GenAI is fostering a culture of innovation and adaptability. We think that GenAI, compared to the other transformation, is not going to impact only the hard skills, but also the soft skills, the leaders, the managers that will be impacted by GenAI. And on this point, maybe, Corinne, I would like to have your point of view on the impact on the white collars, because this is the fact. Now, GenAI is impacted white collars. So how do you think about it on a Microsoft standpoint?
So it's true that there will be a change in the way we work, and there is a change in the way we work. But if you think about it, I mean, most of the white collar today complain about the workload, doing, you know, administrative tasks, not having less assistant, being obliged to do so. When you start to deploy, I mean, virtual assistant and copilot, 90% of them say, well, they are saving times. 85% say, well, we are focusing on things that matter, and then we can be more creative. So I think there's an expectation. There was a fear, but once you deploy, now that does mean that you need to, the most important thing in the company is to focus on the competencies and the skilling, being able to skill your people. And probably that change your work as well. So you're going to be able to do less automated tasks, more creativity. So there will be a change in terms of the job. And there will be new jobs as well. You were talking about the printing machine. There was a fear when it was deployed, like, you know, killing the copies. But at the end of the day, you created more jobs in that area. That will be the same with Gen AI. I'm going to take you one example where somehow it gives more power to some humans. If you take, I mean, the doctors, or if you take, you know, in the hospital, in the nursery, when you deploy, I mean, Gen AI, and that it can generate automatically, you know, your clinical notes. This is what we've done with Nabla startup. So that generates automatically all the clinical notes. You say 40% of the time. What do you do with this time? You discuss with your patients, you discuss with the people, you take care of them. So somehow, I mean, that changed completely the job in that specific case, but you will give back more time, I mean, to people. And to be honest, it can't be solved generally. It's a case-by-case question, function by function. What you're going to do with Gen AI, how do you improve the way you work? So the skilling is super important. This is why we launched this big initiative you probably heard about last week. In terms of making sure, I mean, we can get the Gen AI in the hands of everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Corinne. And maybe, Gabrielle, your thought about that, because I know as a startup, you may have some, I would say, challenging thought on this one.
Well, I think what's very exciting is just that instead of the software forcing you to adapt to it, we're going to enter an era where the software is going to adapt to you. And it's not yet an expectation in the workplace, but it's becoming an expectation very quickly. Up until recently, developers, software engineers were the only ones to speak the language that the machine understood to change itself. And now, pretty much anybody can do it if they can type in their native language. And I think the pace at which we're going to see that differentiate within teams the mindsets people have. So I'd say if you were in the HR department or in talent management, you have to think about the way you were evaluating skills, because now you're going to be able to also evaluate mindset. Who's the most autonomous, empowered, exploratory, people who are able to iterate. In some of our customers, we've had people invent use cases that we didn't suggest or didn't provide templates for. One example, Alan, one of our early customers, 600 people, so quite a small company compared to my friends up here on stage. But one of the junior engineers built performance coaches for their teams, assistants that are able to track their interventions week by week and give them advice based on the feedback that they've received. Hey, last week, remember we told you that you were not great at being concise on explaining how the project was progressing? Here's a suggestion on how to rephrase this. So I think it's the mindset evaluation that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, indeed, you're absolutely right. But maybe, Jérôme, you have your own point of view as a global CHRO. What do you think about Gen AI and the transformation?
No, I think for a large historical company like Carrefour the main challenge is not AI or Gen AI in itself, because we understand the technology, it's available, it's not so difficult to use. The main challenge is ourselves. The main challenge is our legacy, because the main difficulty for us now is we have organization, we have skills and culture, we have processes, and so the difficulty is how do we move from this very heavy legacy to this new way of working, and it's not an easy journey to enter in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an easy one, and for us, frankly speaking, if we don't want to become the new Kodak, it's key really to anticipate this transformation, to make sure that the employees will understand this transformation and will be part of it. And as you mentioned it just previously, Corinne, you shared a big announcement a few days ago. If you want to share some words about that.
I think, as you say, I mean, the most difficult things, as you say, Jérôme, is the company as they say today, because, well, you have an history, you have a legacy. So what we announced last week is our training commitment to train 1 million people, and it's really 3 pillars. The first one is that you need to target the job seekers, all the the students, And this is what we are doing, you know, with France Travail and their agents, but not only. I mean, to deliver very simple content, because it had to be simple, with a French startup, by the way, Cocoroé. So they get access to the technology. It's kind of AI for everyone. The second part, which is not the easiest one, by the way, the professionals. And existing company, so we work with partners, like with Selenza, other partners, and to deliver content and retrain the professional, train the professional how to use it in their specific function, in their specific case. And the third one is one thing which is very important to us is to be inclusive as well of everyone. So we built that program, I mean, a few years ago with Simplon, where we embark, you know, underserved area, people, I mean, who have no access to jobs and technology, but we target also specifically women, because, by the way, I mean, you don't have the percentage of women you should have in AI. So that's this big program that we do with partners. Not forgetting as well the small and medium-sized company, because it is important that I'm not afraid. I think, I mean, all the large company will get it. One way or the other, and will be embarked into that transformation. The biggest challenge is going to be to make it easier for the small, medium-sized company who don't necessarily have, you know, chief digital officer. So that's part of what we want to do as well. I think just to complement what Jérôme was saying about, you know, how do you what we observe in terms of the culture of company, it has to be both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. It has to be from the top. I tell you, even Microsoft, we've been told. When we started the Gen AI, we have to be trained ourselves as well. So that was a kind of top-down and bottom-up, both of it. And we measured every day on our use per day. What do we do? Do we produce use case? And you have to make it fun as well. The gamification of it is important. This is what we've done. That was to make people that it becomes attractive, you know.
Yeah, 100% aligned with what we share. It's key. But maybe, Jérôme, you have your own point of view because you are already led this type of big awareness transformation.
Yes, I think that the main challenge for us is, as Gabriel said, it's not a challenge of expertise, because at the end, Gen AI is quite easy to use because it speaks your own language. The main challenge is a challenge of cultural transformation, changing the mindset. And we have to fight the fear and to fight anxiety, you know, and to explain that more than a risk, it is an opportunity, because it will remove low value-added task. It will enrich most of the jobs, but it's a very difficult way. We did it with digital in general 2 years ago when we trained 300,000 employees through a unique process in order to develop awareness to, but it was ahead of AI. So we have to do it again, but really on a cultural way in order to fight the fear.
Yeah, indeed, it's a fair point, and it's key to make sure that all the employees understand what is going to change and what's in it for me. But maybe, Gabriel, you have some thought about this big transformation program. Is it a way to embark all the employees, or for you is it just poudre de perlimpinpin?
I think every company is going to announce that they're, you know, fundamentally interested and excited to transform as much of the different teams and divisions internally as they can, and to move as quickly as possible. The reality is that for teams that have more legacy, there may be frictions that are not tied to the value of the technology or the providers that they choose, but rather to organizational slowness or limitations. I really agree with your point, Corinne, on the top-down to bottom-up motion. I think top-down, what comes from top-down are three things. One, transversal solutions, the ability to see across divisions, which really unlocks use cases that were previously not possible. Two, price. CFOs are slowly waking up to the cost of Gen AI and trying to understand how many providers are we talking about, what's the actual bill at the end of the month, am I excited that people are using it more, yes or no? And there I'd say that as long as we're anchored on $1 a day or a few dollars a day, we haven't yet graduated into truly proven ROI. And the third one is on security. I think that the CISOs in the room or in the executive committees are also starting to wake up. How many different providers are we giving access to, which is going to limit the bottom-up motion? But on the bottom-up front, providing a tool for teams to identify use cases that nobody in the executive committee had thought of is one of the very powerful unlocks. Every single one of our customers has surfaced use cases that were not anticipated, that we had not brought up, and that were imagined because of the idiosyncratic nature of how the organization worked and how people in those teams really were able to iterate and experiment cheaply. So I think that the big programs need to enable, not necessarily dictate. And to me, the magic recipe is deploying rapidly a solution that can be monitored, that is horizontal enough, that is resilient enough to the fact that there are going to be new models, there are going to be new paradigms. It's no, GPT-4 is not the end of the game, so you can't just bet the house on one provider, and that still respect the rules that the company has set for customer data and privacy, security, et cetera, So enabling in the right sandbox.
Yeah. Now, we are fully aligned with what you shared, and at PwC, what we think is that Gen AI has to be ethical and human-centric. It's really key for us, and what we say is that we have to build the trust. And when I say building the trust, it's not only to create the technical environment, but also a soft environment with sandbox and with environment where employees are able to test by themselves and to share with them the business rules, because you don't want to have your strategy open on the internet. So I don't know, Jérôme, if you have a point of view on this one and how this technology can open the mind within the company.
Yes, no, I think it's true. I think we have to create a new environment, but it's not only a question of environment. Gen AI is also asking a social question, because first it will have a strong impact on the volume and on the nature of the jobs. But more than that, it will generate massive productivity gains. And the question to know how we share these productivity gains inside the company is a major question for us, because it was not comparable with Internet. Internet didn't generate so many productivity gains. And so that's a social question that we will have to answer vis-à-vis employees, vis-à-vis shareholders, vis-à-vis clients. Who will win at the end?
Yeah, and Jean-François was saying that we are running a little bit late, so I don't know if we have some questions from the participants already or no. Don't be shy. No, so maybe your point of view, Gabriel, on this one?
Yeah, I mean, one of our product manifesto elements is augmenting humans, not replacing them. And it's easier as a startup that works for smaller and fast-moving teams to help people plan for the future and different hiring plans, rather than the companies that already have very large workforces. So I don't want to be naive and simplistic here. But I'll just make a couple of comments on how bad we've been at predicting the impact of technological shifts in the past, right? The invention of the spreadsheet in the 70s was commented on as being the end of accountants. And it actually led to a huge increase in the number of accountants, especially in the US when this specific study was ran, but also in a change of the mix of activities that accountants provided. Accountants used to be responsible for writing numbers down in little boxes. That was no longer interesting. The computer did that. So what they did was become counselors and consultants to financial sustainability, both for individuals and businesses. So the mantra for us is the future is always hyperplanary. We used to comment on flying cars. We got social networks, so we didn't get that one right. Now we're saying it's the end of all jobs. I'm also sort of slightly skeptical that that's exactly how it is going to play out. Again, not being simplistic or naive on the fact that some jobs are going to change, but are those jobs really the jobs that we thought 6 to 10-year-olds were dreaming about when they were trying to imagine their careers, or were they the necessary consequence of a way in which work has been rationalized in the workplace over the last 20 years? I think that that's the mix we have to try and remain humble on.
Yeah, indeed, it's a fair point. And Corinne, what is your point of view on this one? Do you think it's really a learning transformation that we have to lead, or is it something more related to a shift of mindset?
Well, I think you can look at it in 3 points of view. One is that as individual, I mean, as I told before, I mean, employee one AI, it's going to be a major thing in terms of attractiveness of companies. And you can see already that companies who are not, you know, embarking on AI, starting not to be as attractive as other companies. And if you think about, even though your job is going to be massively changed, like you take consultants, for example, they want AI. They don't want to work with a company because that productivity was expected to, you know, to run more automatically the task, the administrative task. Now, the reality is that it has to be taken as a strategic point of view by each industry because how the job are going to change, where are we going to focus? Are we going to be more creative? Are we going to, you know, diverse our different businesses? So there's a lot of questions which are strategic at company level. Each company needs to look at how do you disrupt your business. The second point, I think it's responsibility. For a very long time, since 10 years, we publish, you know, principles in terms of responsibility, ethics, fairness, transparency, security, and those principles are well deployed through Toolbox, and they are very important because the governance. When you look at the French company and why they deploy less than maybe in other countries, there is a fear in terms of, you know, the governance responsibility. So that's very important to take that criteria as well. And make sure, you know, that you have the right governance in the company to protect your data, to get the right ethics, the right use of AI, from the consumption to the deployment. That will give you more appetite to the company.
Yeah, I really agree with your point on competitiveness for the employers. If I'm a software developer today and I go to join a company and they say, oh, to push code, what you do is you write it on a piece of paper, your manager will correct it with a red pen, and then on Fridays you go and push it in the mainframe that's in the basement. I'm not going to work at that company. And now all of the jobs, not just software developers, are going to be asking, how do I get stuff done? How do I know about the company's priorities? Where do I get updates on the consequences of decisions we've made? How can I run SQL analyses without being an analyst myself? And if the answer is, well, we kind of do what we've been doing for the last 10 years, that's no longer admissible for a young, ambitious, even new grad. And I think in the transformation of the skills mix that companies are able to compete for, that's going to be a big point.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm checking time, so I don't know if we have already additional questions or no. Still no questions, so that's fine. Let's continue. So maybe I have one last question for all of you. ChatGPT Gen AI has been launched 1 year, 5 months, and 22 days ago, something like that. It was for my birthday, so I remember quite well. But nobody was able to imagine and think about what would have been Gen AI today with all the evolution related to Gen AI because it's going really fast. So my question would be, in 1 year, 5 months, and 22 days, what do you think Gen AI will look like and how the company will manage Gen AI transformation?
In technology, one famous quote by Licklider is, we tend to overestimate the change in the short term and underestimate the change in the long term. So I think what the world will look like in a year is maybe not that different. Yes, the models will be more powerful. Yes, multimodal will be much more of a reality. People will be talking to computers more, looking at images and asking for analysis of this. That's already there. It's just not evenly distributed yet. But I think in 5 to 10 years is when we'll really see the workplace as a completely different environment. And I'd say the way I describe it is the differences between silos, internal languages, and access to information will be flattened. And so you'll just be looking at a company that's much more transparent or readable to its empowered individuals.
No, it's very difficult to answer, but I'm sure that the change will be quicker than what we anticipate. First, because, as we said, it's not requesting a strong expertise from employees. And also, for another reason, Gen AI will enter very quickly in the personal life of our employees. and so it will be imported in the company through the personal life. It's already the case. We have a question sometime. We said, okay, this email, I am sure that the guy wrote it, or did he use ChatGPT? We do not know. It's very difficult to master. So I think that it will be very, very, very quick change.
I think to complement what you say, you have short term, which will be huge adoption. You can expect it will be as adopted. Sorry, I'm not going to break it like this. You know, everybody will have his co-pilot, a virtual assistant. I think we're going to a virtual agent who will kind of autonomous in terms of doing tasks. You will have a virtual agent somewhere, and I think. What would be, I think gives a lot of hope for humanity as well, is that we're going to solve some of the largest problems. If you look at research and you can couple, Gen AI with quantum and the capability in terms of computing, we might be able to solve a very large problem in the healthcare sector, as an example, with research. We're already working on it. In terms of as well, environmental impact, because every domain which is super complex, trillions of data, and the biggest problem of the world, I think we've not seen yet what technology can do, and that's a hope for humanity in a sense as well. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very promising world we are talking about. So I think we're at the end of the session. If there is no question. I'd like to thank you, three of you, for the time you spent with us. I know the agenda is very busy, but we thank you for that. And let's move to the next session.